Good summer day, Sunday, good people. Welcome to the Breaking Chains Book Club, where we are continuing to read The Idaho 4, An American Tragedy by James Patterson and Vicky Ward. And as always, I am joined by my lovely co-reader, Cinnamon Girl.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Lynn.
Hi. So originally you weren't going to be in town today, but you are.
Yes, yay. I'd rather be here than, flying to Houston.
Yeah.
No offense to anyone who lives in Houston.
No. When I first started out in business, I was so excited to go on business trips. And then after about like 3 business trips, I was like, I don't like business travel.
I know, me too. I did it for years and years and years. And, I was the same way. It was like, oh, I'm just waiting for this to be over, and it's like the grind of the airports and the travel and, seeing clients and having to be on all the time. It's a lot, it's a lot. And now I'm just at the point where I'm happy to stay home.
Yeah. It's exhausting, especially when you have kids.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
So, before we get into our reading, we just so you all know, we are starting to read today chapter 54. The chapters are relatively short in this book, and it's clearly divided into several parts, but we're on chapter 54, and we're continuing to talk about the process, the aftermath of the crime, of the heinous murders. And before that, there was, background on the victims' families, their lives, their friendships between each other and in the community. You got a really good, idea of who these people were. And then it moved into sort of Bryan's background and, many stories about him being caught burglarizing neighbors and stalking other females and things like that. And then we got to the actual discovery of the crime and the aftermath and the 911 call and all of that stuff. But so we're going to continue on where it's about the aftermath and the investigation into the crime. But before we get into that, I want to there's a couple things I want to show you. One is I told you that there are going to be, this case has divided well before now into pro-burgers versus guilters. And the pro-burgers took up the mantle of claiming that Bryan Kohberger is innocent, and they, despite more and more evidence coming out, especially as it got closer to trial, they dug in their heels. They said, they kept saying that he's innocent. They came to his rabid defense. And that is something that happens on social media because people start getting a lot of views on a certain case. And if they take a certain side, then they get people in their chats that want them to stay on that side. And so since they've made a public commitment to defend him, they're going to defend him till the end, and rather than admit that they are wrong. And, I personally don't have a stomach for continuing to declare somebody as guilty when they have pled guilty in the crime. This person has pled guilty to all of these murders, but there are still pro-burgers out here who will victim blame and victim shame. And so here's a primary example of what I'm talking about. Why can't Dylan keep her story straight? Eyebrows or no eyebrows? No threat felt or too scared to go into Xana's room? And why did she say in order to use a sliding glass door, you have to scale the wall and the patio has a drop off? 3rd floor balcony, anyone? Who cares? Who cares what Dylan is saying? Dylan is a victim in this. Dylan could have been murdered. She came face to face with this murder. Who cares whether whether her story slightly changes here or there? She's traumatized, as are all the other victims. And well, the surviving victims, right? The families and everything like that. Why continue to scrape the ground with this person who's already been through fucking hell? And here's another one. This one really pissed me off because she's saying Ethan was an embarrassment to his parents. He was doing substances and heavy drinking, failed classes, kicked out of. If this is all true, so what? What does it matter? How is this going to help you? Yep, that's right, Andrew. He said he was guilty. He's guilty. Why keep fighting this? Why keep dragging the victims through the mud? And, you know, it's either you actually really believe this, or you're a greedy fucking tragedy pimp who needs to keep the views coming in on this particular, on this case, because that's how you built your channel. Now, I also told you that, you know, as soon as he pled guilty, look out for the scams. Scams are coming. They're coming. And, you know, lo and behold, I didn't know at the time that at that very moment, as I was talking about that, a scam was being created. Okay. And so I'm going to be going live about this in the near future. And this is the thumbnail for it right here. Okay. So be on the lookout for this thumbnail, because this scammer is going to scam. This person is going to scam. She's a scammer. All right. And that's what she's doing. So look out for that. And you'll see what I'm talking about. It's already been going for a couple weeks now, so it's not like I'm breaking any news or anything. Yeah, that's right, Andrew. It's very, very sad. But you know, I just wanted to say those things. I haven't been. I'm packing to move in a couple weeks here, so my production schedule on my channel is a little bit off. So please bear with me. But I do still want to continue doing these book readings as much as I can. So with that, why don't we get into the book reading? And let me get to, and as I said, we are on chapter 24. What?
54.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say? Yeah, I said 24 because I was clicking on something as I said that, which was dumb of me. It's weird because back here on StreamYard, the window is really, really, really small. Yeah, that's right. The thing that bothers me, Andrew, is that it gets rewarded. That nutso behavior gets rewarded, you know, and and people forget how much of a scammer and an abuser on the internet this person is. So I'm not going to let them forget. I'm not going to let them. So, all right, I will go ahead and start reading. And thank you, people, for being here. And remember to hit the thumbs up. All right, here we go. Chapter 54, 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho, November 13th, 2022. It's cold. Even with the blanket Ava has placed over her shoulders, Emily is cold. She's in shorts. So are Dylan and Bethany. None of them is wearing shoes. They've been sitting out here for hours now, crying, freezing, numb. Captain Barrett gently asks them to go to the police station for interviews. Emily feels for the captain. She can tell how sad Barrett is to see her and Ava crying like this. They are like daughters to him. Emily just wants to do something. She just lost her best friend. She has no idea how or why or who did this. Her world is in free fall. She wants to be able to control something. She looks around. She can look after Dylan, her little, and Bethany, who has lost her big, Maddie. She can give them clothes, protect them as best she can, like a mother hen.
So before driving to the police station, Emily pops into her apartment to get clothes for all of them and bottles of water and snacks. When they get to the station, it feels as if the officer on duty isn't sure what to do. It dawns on Emily that it isn't just her world that's been rocked. None of them, not even the police, are ready for a tornado like this. The friends sit together, mostly in silence. Random people enter and leave. John Henrik, the director of student care and case management, appears along with a woman counselor who asks if they want to talk about their feelings. The group says no, they aren't ready to talk about anything with anyone. They just want to be left alone. Henrik assures them before he leaves that the last thing they need to worry about is classes. He'll be in touch with all their professors. Emily peers downstairs at one point and, with a pang, sees Jeff and Jasmine Kernodle being led into a room on the first floor. She intuits that the story is overtaking them, that the news of what's happened is likely to reach their nearest and dearest before they can get to them, thanks to social media. So she phones her mom, Karen. Mom, I'm at the police station. I'm safe. I don't really want to talk about it, but I'm not going to have my phone for a while.
Karen is in disbelief. She hasn't seen or heard anything, and Emily wants to protect her from the details for as long as possible. All you need to know is that they're just all gone, and we can talk about it later. One by one, the friends are peeled off and taken to interview rooms like you see on crime dramas, a room where the tape recorder is going and the window is a one-way mirror. They never learn who is watching their interviews. They just know they're being watched. They don't know if the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, is there or not. They later wonder if he might have been. He's going to need the answers to the questions they are asked. Like why, the police want to know, were Emily, Hunter, Josie, and Lyndon awake so late the night before? Why would Emily have treated Xana at that hour? Texted Xana at that hour. Who exactly did Dylan see? Why did she think he was a firefighter? Did he see her when she saw him? Was he in the house already when everyone got home? Why does she think the masked man in black walked away from her? Thank God, Emily thinks, the man in black did walk away from her. Hi, Justice Jane. Thanks for being here. Is this person now coming for them? After their interviews, the friends determine they are not going to separate. No one wants to go home. For Bethany and Dylan, that's not even possible.
They swear to look out for one another, to protect one another at all costs from whoever attacked their friends. It's the only positive step they can take when everything else has gone irretrievably backward.
Yikes. Yeah, I know. I think, Anne Vroom, you're so right. Geez, I'd be so upset. The first whole huge trauma and then realizing, heck, I'm a suspect. And I think that's the trauma that practically every victim of a family goes through, because if the killer is unknown, they're immediately going to suspect the family. And then social media takes over and just rakes them over the coals. What a horrible experience. And none of them ever chose this, right? None of them ever chose this. It's horrible. All right, let's keep going. Chapter 55, Moscow, Idaho, November 13th, 2022. Daniel Ramirez, a journalist from the Argonaut, the University of Idaho student newspaper, is getting coffee at the drive-thru with the Argonaut's editor, Hadia Tariq, when their phones ping simultaneously with a vandal alert warning students to shelter in place. Ordinarily, this sort of vandal alert is issued when there's a moose on campus. What? A moose? This time, it says there's been a homicide. The alert also tells them to stay away from the King Road area. So they do what every good journalist would. They head straight for 1122 King Road. They see the multitude of police cars in the tape standing in front of the house. Directing the others is Tyson Barrett, whom they recognize because he's the campus police commandant. They ask Barrett for a statement, but he only repeats the vandal alert with no further details. So Hadia and Daniel head to the Argonaut newsroom on the top floor of the Bruce M. Pittman Center to see what they can learn online.
The students are conversing on the college chat app Yik Yak, a kind of anonymous closed version of Twitter, And there's huge confusion because at 3 p.m., another vandal alert is posted, this one saying that there is no threat to the community. What does this mean? Daniel and Hadia can see that the students are confused and scared. Can they really walk around safely? The student journalists want to be able to report on this, but what can they say that is accurate? Conspiracy theories are already flying on Yik Yak. So too are the names Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee, but not in such a way that Daniel and Hadia feel they're reportable. They are student journalists, yes, but they consider themselves journalists first, students second. They take their job seriously. On Yik Yak, the consensus seems to be that 1122 King Road is a party house. So a lot of students are suggesting that fentanyl must have been involved. Maybe it's even posited the homicide has something to do with Emma Bailey, who was seen in the Whites, the apartment building next to the house the weekend before. The following spring, Emma will be charged with the delivery of a controlled substance in connection with the death of another UI student. Prosecutors will dismiss the case. Could she have been at the King Road house last night?
At around 5 p.m., a friend of Daniel's in a Catholic students group forwards something that Daniel deems the most reliable source so far as to the victims' identities. The students have been urged to pray for 4 victims whose names are given. Even so, Daniel and Hadia wait to publish anything until they get confirmation from the police. And they know from bitter experience that it's going to be tough to get much from the Moscow PD. Hadia is still waiting for the public information officer, or PIO, to get back to her about someone she refers to as Knife Guy. A man dressed in black, riding a bicycle and holding a knife, had harassed a couple of people on Paradise Street back in September. Hadia had written that up and done a follow-up piece because the police had issued a report saying he was no longer a threat to anyone, but didn't explain why. Just like she's waiting for answers about the 2 other campus deaths that have occurred while she's been at the Argonaut. One student died of an overdose, a suspected suicide, in the spring. The Argonaut never wrote about it because the police never got back to Hadia about it. Another student, Hudson Lindo, was found dead in the creek in May. Sources said it was a direct result of a hazing. He'd been made to drink out of a 5-gallon bucket and was then abandoned by the people who made him do it.
Hadia wanted to report what her sources told her, but with no confirmation from the police, she couldn't. She felt that would be irresponsible. So now she and Daniel have nothing official to go on regarding what happened at King Road. Yik Yak, meanwhile, is exploding with all sorts of speculative storylines. One is that a group of men dressed in black entered the house. Another is that they were killed by members of a Colombian drug cartel who had known Xana's mother in prison and wanted payback. Another is that one of the 4 victims had been about to expose the Greek houses for sex trafficking, the idea being that new sorority members were coerced into dating fraternity members. Yet another is that they were killed to cover up some kind of hazing sexual assault. Another is about a love triangle involving Ethan, Xana, and either Maddie or Kaylee. Every minute there's a new invented plot line. This is like no story the duo has covered before. They aren't sure of protocol. Surely it isn't right to start reaching out to the victims' families too soon. Hadia feels that would not be respectful. She assumes, incorrectly as it turns out, that other journalists will feel the same way. That evening, Daniel sees that PBS appears to have a lead no one else does. A segment on the 4 homicides in Moscow comes on the news.
According to the PBS report, the students were shot. Jesus. Daniel and Hadia look at each other. How on earth can PBS know that? Did the police tell PBS they are not telling something they're not telling other news organizations? Surely PBS can have gotten it wrong, can they? The 2 are confused, but also beginning to feel an emotion that will become all too familiar in the coming weeks as members of the national media descend on their town and report a barrage of nonsense in the absence of facts. What they feel is disappointment. Wow. Oh, hi, Shauna, and thank you for being a member for 4 months. So bravo to these students for, having restraint and not reporting on all of these crazy theories. But let me tell you something, as they walked through all of those crazy theories about cartels and Emma Bailey, every single one of those nonsense theories were driven home by this scammer. Every single one of them, I remember. So, but it's also very, very disappointing to hear that PBS is running with a story. PBS is supposed to have some journalistic integrity. They ran with it they ran with a bad story without confirming it, because it wasn't true. It wasn't true. So anyway, we shall continue. Your turn.
Chapter 56, Troy, Idaho, November 13th, 2022. It's dark by the time the police chief gets close to the crime scene. First, Fry goes home, showers, dresses in his uniform, and puts on his gun, a Sig Sauer P320. A murderer is out there after all. Then he drives to 1122 King Road, Moscow. He doesn't imagine for a second that any of these actions will come back to haunt him. He doesn't yet realize that every move he makes will be fodder for criticism from a press skeptical that a little police department in a little town can find whoever killed Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee. He doesn't yet grasp the snobbery of the coastal elites who consider Moscow the middle of nowhere and assume the police chief must therefore be inexperienced and inept. He doesn't yet comprehend that the media is going to hound him so much he will have to cover his office windows with butcher paper. He doesn't yet realize that the job of a police chief in the modern era has little to do with the training and experience he's gotten in 30 years on the job, including 10 weeks spent at the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia, a program for which only the country's very best police officers are selected.
He doesn't yet understand that he will need over the next 6 weeks. That what he will need over the next 6 weeks is a PhD in communications, and that's something he is not equipped with. We talked about this last week. None of them have communications experience.
Right, exactly.
Fry is thinking about process, the well-being of his team, and protecting the investigation the way he knows how, and the way Bill Thompson wants it, with silence. The good thing is about having a small department is that Fry trusts his men implicitly. He knows there will be no leaks, whatever they find. What he doesn't yet know is that in the absence of a real story, people invent fictitious ones, and that is where the real harm lies. I can't believe they didn't anticipate any of that. That's what I've often thought about. Maybe I should go consulting for these smaller departments for cases like this. It's very common for organizations to have a crisis management plan, and it's not a plan that is meant to tell distruths. It's just making sure that the right information is being communicated at the right time so as not to infringe on the investigation, but also to keep the families aware, keep the families in close touch, making sure that they aren't surprised by any news that comes online, and to squash some of these rumors. You can come out and say that rumor is absolutely false, right? But the other thing I want to mention is, obviously, there's been a huge document download. They've been releasing documents since the guilty plea, videos and documents, and people are going over them. I've been lurking on JS for Justice's channel as she goes through them, and it's harrowing, and it's also impressive at the same time. With the amount of detail that the police used to investigate, they investigated so many leads. I'm sure they investigated this guy who was riding around with a knife in black. They investigated a guy who had been who actually said that he did it, but he was so drugged out, and that then he retracted his statement, and they also couldn't find any evidence. And so they investigated a lot, but also some of the information coming out in these documents is harrowing. Bryan Kohberger's relationship with his mother, the fact that he called his mother several times, right, not long after the murders, that he was on the phone with her when he was driving back to Pullman to look for, probably his knife sheath, or just to, go back to the scene of the crime. And also he only had 18 contacts in his phone. 18. That is a very, very small amount of contacts to have in your phone as a 29-year-old, I think he was. Is 27, 28, 29, around that time. Yeah, I know, and even the big cities don't do it well. You're absolutely right, because the public information officer is an officer. He's not, again, he doesn't have any communications background, and they don't think about the public the way, they have no idea how to think about the public, especially when there's a major case like this. The other thing that's being detailed and brought out in extensive detail is that there were 13 complaints about him as a TA, how he would corner students in rooms, how, he eventually got fired. And, because of his behavior toward women in the classroom. And he had this habit of showing up late to his female professors' classes, but always on time for his male professor classes, which is really interesting.
Yeah, that was weird. And I think the other thing that struck me was that they mentioned that he always called his mom and dad mother and father.
Yeah, that's even how he had them programmed into the phone.
Right. Which, I mean, I hope that they get into the family relationship a little bit, because I'm sure that there's a lot of weirdness there.
I don't know if it'll be interesting to see if they get into it in this book, but I'm sure some of it will be filtered out through all these documents that are coming out and the questions they were asking him and his, I don't think I'm looking forward to when they release his video interrogation.
Yeah.
Okay, so your turn, chapter 27.
Okay.
27 again. 57.
Chapter 57, Moscow, Idaho, November 13th, 2022. At around 7 p.m., the Sigma Chi fraternity house gets a visit from Blaine Eccles, the dean of students. 61 young men gather in the lodge, their ashen faces tear-stained. If they ever needed to feel the comfort of leadership, it's now. Dean Eccles rises to the occasion. He has no children of his own, and these young men right here, they are his family. First things first, the dean tells them. He's aware they are the only Greek house on campus that doesn't have a chef, and he knows today most of them will not have thought about buying groceries, so he's got them covered. Food, water, milk are on the way. Second, he's opened the counseling center 24/7, so its team is available for anyone who needs it. Third, the Idaho State Police is going to provide round-the-clock security for the house. And fourth, everyone can just get the hell out of town.
No need to email professors. No need to turn in assignments. Go, he tells them, be with the people you love. Fifth, he's going to let the fraternity president, Reed Ofston, deal with the press however he wants. Yikes. He advises the group to stay off social media, chiefly to be sensitive to the victims' families. The release of tension is palpable. Some of the fraternity members cry openly. These are rough young athletes, but they have never experienced anything like this. Ethan's frat brothers feel his loss, but they also feel like participants in whatever terrible trauma he suffered. The back of the frat house has a view of 1122 King Road. So after waking to what most had assumed would be a lazy Sunday and learning the news, one by one, the whole chapter had gathered there, staring grimly across the lower 40 at the massive police cars and emergency vehicles, listening to the wailing sirens, fearing the worst as their phones blew up with surreal texts about their frat brother Ethan and about Xana, whom they loved like a sister. Only last night they'd all been joshing together at the post-game party, and now their worlds are upended. Most of them watched Hunter Chapin leave the house that morning with Cooper Atkinson. They watched Jaden Shepard receive a call, after which he turned to them and said simply, "Ethan's dead."
They received texts about a gruesome killing, blood everywhere. They watched as, hours later, against the backdrop of a swarm of police officers, the forlorn figures of Hunter Chapin and Hunter Johnson walked back to the fraternity house, packed up some stuff, and headed to the police station. The fraternity brothers had hugged Hunter Chapin, told him they loved him. They weren't sure he could even hear, he was so grief-stricken. Once Dean Eccles leaves, they head to their rooms. Many of them phone their parents and ask them to come get them right now. Others start to load up their cars. None of them knows what exactly happened to Ethan, their brother. One of them, David Barriochoa, walked across the lower 40 at 3:59 a.m. and felt a strange chill as he did so. It's a chill they all feel now. Their instinct tells them to run. Get the hell out of Moscow. Get as far away as possible. Run, run.
What a harrowing scene. Thinking, just having recently, my one of my sons being in that whole fraternity system and living so close to all the other houses, you can see houses, and look at houses from your house. And I can totally picture all those kids just staring and looking at the police and knowing that's their friends. Oh, geez.
Yeah, it had to be just, horrifying. And you'd never expect to be faced with a situation like that. What do you do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that the dean gave them some instruction and guidance there, but you can see, like, just going back to your room after something like that and having to sit there and, call your family and say, come and get me. I mean, it's just, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. In Ann room, I'd do the same thing. I would do the same thing. All right. Chapter 58, Moscow, Idaho, November 13, 2022. It's 9:30 p.m. when Jim and Stacy Chapin pull into Moscow. When she sees Maisie and Hunter, Stacy hugs them tightly. Then Jim does. Stacy has one message for her two surviving children. I don't know what the hell just happened, but this won't sink us as a family. We'll figure it out together. They head to the police station for a so-called debrief, but the police don't have any information for them that they don't already know. Chief Fry is now on the premises back from King Road. He and Tyson Barrett sit with the family in a conference room. The chief is instantly struck by the strength and grace of both Stacy, a statuesque woman with long blonde hair, and Jim, her quieter, kind-eyed husband, who is dependably by her side, not in front, not behind, but right next there to her. The worst part of this job is having to deliver news like this to families, and yet Fry is often impressed by the dignity and resilience of the parents and siblings he's gotten to know, some of whom he has forged close relationships with.
Stacy Chapin is special. He can see that. Even now, she's expressing concern about his team, about what they are going through, and offering her support. He tells her that they will find whoever did this. He's appointed Captain Tyson Barrett to be the Chapin's point person. They should call him whenever they want, and he will call them every day. But now, strangely, there's nothing for the Chapins to do except go home and wait. But they aren't going to drive back home tonight. Jim has already been at the wheel for almost 20 hours straight. So the family heads to the Best Western Hotel, where the university has booked a block of rooms. In the lobby, they encounter Emily, Hunter Johnson, Dylan, Bethany, Josie, Lyndon, and Ava, all huddled together, exhausted. Stacy hugs all of them, noticing immediately that Hunter Johnson and Emily are clearly in shock. Hunter Johnson can scarcely speak. Are you guys all right? She asks, knowing they are not. She asks if she can bring them food, water, blankets. She knows Emily and Hunter Johnson well, and in the absence of their own parents, she steps in.
Her years as a school principal have taught her a thing or two about mental health, and she can see that Hunter has been especially traumatized and will need counseling. She's going to make sure that he gets it. She offers up there, and then the same team in Moscow that police have provided to help Maisie and her own son Hunter, a gesture that strikes everyone as remarkable given what she herself must be going through. In the coming days, weeks, and months, many people will marvel at Stacy Chapin's bandwidth and compassion for others in the face of personal tragedy. Stacy herself will later say that, of course, she checked on the kids and their families. What else could she have done? Deep inside, she's lost, but she knows that now, more than ever, she's needed as a mom. She's always been everyone's backbone, and she's not going to stop now. In Emily's hotel room, the friends huddle together. They are terrified, but also reassured when they hear sirens going on and off throughout the night, their police cars circling. Bethany is withdrawn and quiet, but the rest of them take turns talking. Dylan, especially, is in full flow, reliving what she thinks she saw the night before. She realizes that the man she thought was a firefighter must have been the murderer.
So why did he walk away from her? They'd made eye contact. If he was after Maddie or Kaylee, why did he kill Xana and Ethan? Had he been upstairs all along? Dylan thinks maybe he was, but how did he get in? The lock on the back sliding door is broken. Until now, that was quite useful because their parents and friends knew how to get into the house if they didn't have the code to the front door. But how did he know that? Emily asks what Dylan did after she saw the killer. Dylan explains that she raced into Bethany's room and slept there. She says she was scared, yes, but she hadn't wanted to trust her own instincts. Emily doesn't blame Dylan for telling herself at the time that she was drunk, tired, crazy, hallucinating. But she can see that Dylan, Bethany too, is likely headed into a shitstorm of pointed fingers for not calling the cops sooner. Emily doesn't blame her little for bolting herself in with Bethany and falling asleep. She too would likely have second-guessed herself in the same situation. Her maternal protective instincts kicking in yet again, she decides she's going to do her best to defend Dylan in the coming days. People come and go at all hours at 1122 King Road, she later explains.
Your first reaction if you see someone at 4 a.m. just isn't going to be, oh, here's a guy who's come to murder us. Common sense tells you, oh, it's someone visiting. But common sense is an approach this group has now dispensed with. Over the next days and months, as they will feel at night in the dark is all they will feel. At night in the dark is fear bordering on terror, wondering who is out there and if she is coming for them next. Wow. I just want to say bravo to Stacy Chapin. I think she was just that sometimes when you are in the middle of trauma yourself, a way to cope is to help other people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is surround another person and say, I know what I need, so I also know what you need as well.
Yeah.
So bravo at her for doing that. Okay, go ahead.
Chapter 59, Moscow, Idaho, November 14th, 2022. It's around 4 or 5 a.m., pitch black outside, but the Chapin parents don't even try to sleep. They just lie in the bed and watch as Hunter and Maisie finally pass out from exhaustion. Eventually, Stacy gets up. She wants to go for a walk. She needs to do something. Jim immediately says he'll come with her. He wouldn't dream of leaving his wife alone in this moment. It's freezing and they are bundled up. For once, this couple doesn't speak. There's no need. They simply stride. They exit their hotel and head north toward the water tower and the Kibbe Dome, past the golf course that Ethan loved and the arboretum where he went for runs. They go to Sig Kai House, like they often do, expecting to be able to turn the doorknob, go in, walk through the house, and go back across the lower 40.
But the back door is now locked, so they walk around the place, and somehow Stacy doesn't remember how they wind up standing outside of the King Road house. All the cars and law enforcement officers, they are gone. There's just one cop standing in front. It's eerily silent. Were it not for the yellow tape, one wouldn't know anything had happened here. My son is still inside the house, Stacy says to the officer, who isn't sure how to react. In fact, the bodies are no longer there. They've been taken to Spokane to be autopsied, but Stacy doesn't know this. I just wanted to see it. I don't know. There, with the first light streaking the sky, as Stacy holds Jim's hand, she realizes this is it. This is goodbye. Sorry. Whew. This is goodbye to her beloved boy, a prince of a young man. Fuck, man.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, fuck. Jesus Christ.
Just so heartbreaking.
How dare anyone say one ugly word against these people? It's just so, I know people have the right to, but it's just so fucking heartbreaking, you know?
I know it is. It is heartbreaking. And that's not even good. You know, that word describes it a little bit, but it's just tragically, you know, heartbreaking. I can't even imagine that pain.
Yep. Hi, Mittens for Kittens. Yeah. You know, I remember Ann Vroom hearing that she was a school principal, but, you know, it makes a lot of sense that part of her coping strategy would be to become a mother to them, right?
Right.
Yeah. And that's the other thing about communications. You know, what you need to know about communications is that there are different audiences that get different priorities about the information, right? And in a situation like this, the family should have like a person on call at first who can communicate with them the things they should know and the things, and then explain why they can't know what they can't know, and do their very, very best to get information to them before anything goes out, you know, anything official goes out to the world. And it's probably it's a bear to control because information flows so quickly these days, but you have to do your very best, especially when the taxpayers are paying you, you know. It would just be awful if she thought he was still in the house. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It sounds like she did, that she thought he was still there, right?
Yep. And that she was saying goodbye to him as like, you know, couldn't even go in and see him. And Jesus Christ.
I know.
I think it's your turn, right?
Okay. Yeah. Chapter 60, Rathdrum, Idaho, November 14th, 2022. It's completely dark when Jack DeCoeur arrives at the Gonsalves ranch house at around 9 p.m. Jack knocks on the door crying, and when Steve opens it, he is business first. Jack, I got to ask you to roll up your sleeves. I hate to do this, but I've got to do it. The kid shows him his arms, wrists, and hands. Nothing, no scratches, nothing that would indicate that 24 hours earlier, he was wielding the huge knife that killed Kaylee. They hug. Oof. Jack walks the family through everything he knows at this point. He shows them his phone and all the missed phone calls in the early hours of Sunday morning. He thinks he might burst. He was asleep. If only he'd woken up. If only he'd answered. Kaylee and Maddie might still be. He breaks down. Steve tells him not to go there. There was nothing anyone could have done.
My God, that poor kid. Kaylee and Maddie had done everything right. They'd gotten a sober person to drive them home. Then they'd gone upstairs to sleep. No one could have done a damn thing against someone with a knife in the bedroom. Steve doesn't want to think about what terror his daughter or Maddie might have experienced. He will later say that the pain is like a splinter that's wedged deep beneath the surface of the skin. It hurts all the more because as if someone should help remove it. But so far, there's no one out there helping him and his family, at least no one official. What option does that leave him other than taking matters into his own hands? Oh, Jesus Christ. Yes, that's right, Anne. It is a horrifying reality. Okay, your turn.
Chapter 61, Moscow, Idaho, November 14th, 2022. Jim and Stacy Chapin continue their walk in the new, cold dawn. They pass the Sigkai house again. At the gate on Nez Perce Drive, they stop, shocked by what they see in the parking lot. The brothers are leaving the house en masse, flocking like birds caught in the winter snow rush, rushing to head south. When they spot the Chapins, they put down the belongings they're clutching. One by one, the brothers hug them as if their lives depend on it. Everyone here knows Stacy and Jim because Ethan and Hunter were the lifeblood of the house. Even when Ethan was barred from living on the premises, he'd made a point of showing up to help with recruitment during rush week, working harder, putting in longer hours than any of them. For the worst of reasons, the dean has cleared campus, though Thanksgiving break, to which they have all been looking forward, is coming early. None of them has any idea what the future holds or if they'll ever return to this house, to this school.
Their moms had called them home, Stacy later said. They were broken, all of them. This moment of togetherness, of solidarity in the face of fear and shock is a foreshadowing of the way Stacy Chapin will handle the loss of her son in the weeks and months to come. She will fight to unite the living when she cannot bring back the dead. That morning, early, it isn't just the Sigchai brothers who are packing up. There is a mass exodus out of Moscow despite the snowstorm that is descending. The kids who are hunkered down in the Best Western all go home. Classes are canceled. Anyone who can leave does. Stacy and Jim go back to the hotel. They, Maisie, and Hunter pile into the Chevy Tahoe and begin the winding 2.5-hour drive up the hills to their second home in Priest Lake. Thanksgiving is always their last visit of the year to this house. The weather makes it too dangerous to get here in the freezing months. Even now, it's hairy. Snow is blanketing the roads, and it's not clear what's streaming more, the white flakes outside or the tears rolling down the faces of the car's passengers. Jim later can only remember that his mind was anywhere but on the road. Just outside of Coeur d'Alene, before the steep climb up into the mountains, they hear sirens. Of all things, they are being pulled over. Oh my gosh.
Jim rolls down the window when the state patrolman approaches. It was our son that was one of the kids who was killed, he says. The officer blinks. I'm so sorry, he says. There's no mention of whatever driving infraction Jim might have committed. Just get there safely, he tells Jim. Stacy is taken aback. It was a profound moment for all of us, she later said, a reminder that there was good in the world and that they needed to focus on the living. Jim grips the steering wheel and starts the engine. They head on up into the mountains to be alone with their grief.
Wow. He was it, I remember, there have been several times when I've driven from one place to another and forgotten the drive because I was so dissociated from something or another, right? I mean, I've always been a safe driver, so I don't, but I wonder if he was, somehow driving a little bit erratically, meaning like weaving or whatever, because he was so traumatized and so in his head, you know what I mean?
Right.
Okay. Chapter 62. Wait, that was you who just finished reading, right?
That's right. It's you.
Okay. Moscow, Idaho, November 14th, 2022. Canceling classes for the rest of the week doesn't prove to be straightforward. Provost Tory Lawrence canvasses his senior administrators, including the Dean of Students, Blaine Eccles, and the head of the Faculty Senate, Kelly Quinnett, before making the decision that classes will be offered remotely, but also optionally, all the way through Thanksgiving. Quinnett is the outspoken head of the drama department, and her husband, Bryan, has already started a new routine of walking her down the 10-foot garden path from her office to her car. Quinnett doesn't hesitate before rendering her opinion. Of course, students shouldn't have to show up to class in the wake of trauma like this. A number of the parents agree. They want the school to cancel classes all the way to Christmas. But Eccles is worried that a large number of students who have already paid for the housing don't have the ability to go anywhere else. He's concerned that those students, especially the ones who never met Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee, might blame the university for depriving them of the education they have already paid for.
One of these unlucky students is Alex Salvador, a recruited tennis star from Spain. When not attending classes, Alex divides his time between practicing on the UI courts and traveling to intercollegiate matches. The serious athletes at UI don't have the time or desire to join Greek life, effectively separating their campus experiences from that of the party kids. But now, Alex and 3 tennis teammates, all on scholarships, all from Europe, are holed up in their shared apartment just 3 minutes from the King Road house. They'd once or twice fleetingly dropped in at parties there, but now they can think of little else but the gruesome fate of the 4 victims. Then it really hit me, Alex said. As the town empties of students who can easily drive home, Alex and his roommates find themselves confined indoors once the sun goes down at around 4 p.m. They each buy handguns, lock their door, and spend sleepless nights mostly peering out of their windows into the darkness, seeing just the blue lights of police cars endlessly circling the streets. No one wants to venture onto streets where a murderer might be lurking. We were not safe there, Alex said, then refined his words. We thought we were not safe. Fear isn't the only emotion they feel. They are confused by seemingly conflicting directions from the administration. They can take their classes remotely, but in some cases, people don't have to take them at all.
As Alex reflected, it was a mess. A stone's throw from Alex and his roommates, Ben DeWitt, who had been in Xana's high school class, is also staying put. As a features writer for the Argonaut, DeWitt has work to do. Like many University of Idaho kids his age, he packs heat. He knows that it's legal to conceal and carry in Idaho, just not on campus. Even though he has a gun, DeWitt pushes his couch against his apartment door at night, an extra precaution. Over in Pullman, Evan Ellis is in his studio by himself during a commercial break from his broadcasting. A hard-bitten journalist, he still locks the studio door. I've never done that before, he said. That's how uneasy it was. I had this weird gut feeling, and I came to this realization. What if this animal is still here? Doug Wilson, the gray-bearded pastor of Christ Church, a conservative evangelical congregation of around 3,000, goes to get his car keys fixed and learns the local locksmith is overwhelmed. Wow. The guy told me that people who never locked their doors were coming in and ordering locks installed, he said.
Wilson is used to being treated with some hostility by his neighbors, but even he has never experienced a mass panic like this. Dr. Rand Walker, a trusted local therapist whom Chief Fry has put on standby to treat his traumatized officers and their families, is observing rare and frightening instances of the 6 degrees of separation connections among the town's residents. The fact that everyone in Moscow knows everyone else has morphed overnight from a source of comfort to something deeply unsettling. Neighbor suddenly mistrusts neighbor. Friends mistrust friends. Customer mistrusts vendor. People are shutting themselves in, hiding from one another. Walker is hearing from his patients, from townspeople, from members of his own family, that suddenly the connectivity between them all feels toxic. Walker's son, Christian, a former UI student, knew the victims. His girlfriend is the daughter of the owner of the Mad Greek, where Xana and Maddie worked. Now the restaurant is closed, and a handwritten placard is in the window. We are closed temporarily to mourn the loss of 2 staff members. We will update FB on status of store soon. Please keep all the family and friends of yesterday's victims in your thoughts. MG family.
It's all too close to feel comfortable, because who knows who among them is the murderer? For Jeff Smitty Smith, the owner of Moscow Bagel and Deli, the sudden emptiness has an immediate economic consequence. His customer base is almost entirely wiped out days earlier than he budgeted for. His girlfriend, Sarah Wicks, the owner of Vine Wine Bar, has a slightly different problem, one she shares with Mark Trivelpiece, her close friend and the owner of the Corner Club. They don't think it's fair to ask employees to work alone behind a bar at night. Who knows who might show up or approach them outside in the dark alley where they walk to their cars. Trivelpiece solves this by taking on all the shifts himself. He tells his remaining student workers, a dozen or so have already gone home, to stay away. He's got their backs. Local lawyer Mike Pattinson's chief concern is his 22-year-old daughter, Lexi, who lives in an apartment at the Bricks, barely 50 yards from 1122 King Road. She lives so close that some of her neighbors reported to police that around 4 a.m. on November 13th, they heard a scream. They were interviewed down at the police station.
Lexi had been an AFI and found Kaylee to be generous, thoughtful sister, a bright personality. Lexi liked so much that the two roomed together during their second semester. They wound up becoming neighbors in their senior year. Whenever Murphy the Pooch wandered into Lexi's apartment, she returned the golden doodle to Kaylee. Most evenings, Lexi walked past the back of the King Road home to get to her car in the parking lot and saw Maddie through her window, putting on her makeup at her vanity. And just a few days before the murders, Lexi played beer pong with Xana, who, dressed in a yellow jumpsuit, was dancing and hugging every person who walked into the room. So Lexi is badly shaken. Her boyfriend puts his hunting rifle under the bed. Her father tells her to get out of that apartment and come home immediately. Pattinson has faith in Chief Fry's ability to catch whoever did this. He bets that when the cops get the perpetrator, they'll find a fraternity rivalry or some equally simple motive behind the murders. But he's worried that the timing of this, right before Thanksgiving, and the brutality of the murders are going to take the cops into a media storm they've never seen before. He's not at all sure that the police is trained for that part. And he's worried about Bill Thompson, who is in the twilight of his career and doesn't get a homicide every day.
Certainly not a mass homicide. He may have to trim that beard a bit for prime time, Pattinson thinks cynically. Meanwhile, though, he's genuinely scared of who is out there, just like everyone else. For the first time in his 20-plus years of marriage, he does not tease his wife, Marcella, when she bolts the door at night. He's always told her to relax, that she's not living in her native Colombia. Honey, this is not South America. It's Moscow, he's often said. He doesn't say it anymore. Whoever did this is the sick person who skinned the dog. Claire Qualls, a 20-year-old student and first responder, was driving back to Moscow from Spokane when she got the alert. No big deal, she thought, about the 911 alert that all the EMT volunteers get, until the news started ricocheting around the 4 murders. Today, she's haunted by them. Her cousin was close friends with Ethan, and 1122 King Road is just 2 blocks from her basement apartment, which is at the bottom of a dark set of covered stairs in what is generally considered the shittiest neighborhood in all of Moscow.
Every time Claire comes home, her thoughts turn dark. She'll walk down those steps and he'll attack her, and she'll hit her head on the concrete and no one will see her lying there dying. Claire has never wanted a gun. She doesn't know how to use one, and as a trained first responder, she knows the statistics. The majority of firearm deaths are caused by accidents in the home. Now, though, she's going to go buy a handgun and she'll ask Katie, her roommate, to teach her how to use it. And her dad is going to come and replace her cheap window that can easily be opened from the outside with a better one. He and her mom want her to move home, but Claire doesn't want to. She's not sure their home is any safer. She's certain that whoever committed the murders is the same sick fuck who skinned her parents' neighbor's dog. 2 nights before the murders, the animal, a pet of close family friends, had been running around the backyard as usual, but then it had not appeared indoors to eat. Unusual. The next morning it was found, skinned. In a hunting community, skinning wild beasts is not uncommon, but a pet dog? Claire shivers. She's going to get a personal safety alarm and clip it on her backpack and keep it next to her at night. To activate it, you don't need to press a button.
You simply pull it apart and it goes off, and its piercing sound rings out until it's put back together. That way, Claire figures she'll have a fighting chance if someone attacks her on the stairs or in her bed. Without an alarm, she thinks poor Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan didn't stand a chance.
I forgot about the skinned dog.
Yeah, I remember. I remember about that because there was also a cat that was killed as well around the same time. And I don't know if we might find out in these document drops that they investigated Kohberger for that as well, but I haven't heard anything about that yet. But what really, really strikes me about that was a longer chapter than the other ones, is they are documenting the horror around the community at that time and the impact that this had on the community. It had economic impact. It had traumatic impact. It changed everybody's lives there. It instantly. in like that, the second he did that, it changed everybody's lives. And I found myself wondering if he's read this book. I would imagine he has, or at least that maybe his parents, um, may have detailed it for him, and whether he would even care, or if he would, what he would feel about the fact that he knows that he had this kind of impact on all these people.
I would think in the aftermath of all of this, he would have been watching and listening, and that he would have relished in, all of the at the impact that he had caused, that it changed everybody's lives. He probably would have been thinking, look what I did.
Yep. Did you see
Yeah.
Did you see the weird leaked video that came out of him out?
In his prison cell?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
All right.
What was that? What was that?
Let me grab that and show it to y'all real quickly and just show you what I see. But of course, I haven't been in prison and I've never been a murderer, so I don't, but hold on. Okay, here we go. And then after we show this, we're going to close it out. Because I still have packing to do. All right, so here he is in his jail cell, and I'm going to try to make it, who knows how this thing leaked. I don't know how this thing leaked, and it's not very long. It's only 38 seconds. Okay. So you have to really watch closely. And oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Like, he just looks creepy standing there. He has some think he's in county jail here, not in prison. I think this is prison. So I do watch this channel called Jumpsuit Pablo.
I love him. I love him.
And I'm more trusting of his analysis about whether he's in prison or a county jail here. And he says this is prison for sure. And
because he spent how many years in prison himself, right?
Something like 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years. So he actually had a few things to say about the color of the, stuff he's wearing. And okay, so let's watch this. So he's putting something up on his little shelf there. And then he stands there. And he's so bizarre. He stands there and looks at his hands. And then he keeps standing there and he looks and he looks. Now, I will say that there is Bri, you think prison? I think it's prison. Yeah, and his hands are red. I didn't know that red hands are inclusive with OCD. I didn't know that was a thing. I'm not sure. But then he just kind of stands there and looks around. Now, I will say that there are times when I'm in the middle of thinking, like I'll stand in my kitchen and be like, okay, I got to do this next. And then I got to do this next. I'll stand there in my kitchen and say, okay, and what order should I pack this in? And what order should I pack this in? And, so I'll do that. Is that just what he's doing? So maybe he's thinking about, well, maybe this is how I should organize my little shelf here. and he looks down to his right again, and he looks up again. Or maybe he's trying to figure, now he's very slowly and carefully, he was very slowly and carefully wiping his Crocs with wet tissue paper. And then he just stands there and looks, and he's looking. What is it? What the hell? Sorry, hold on. I didn't mean to
I had no idea what that was. It was
what are you Kohberger?
I wish we had a little before and a little after this so we could see. But notice his shoes. He bought tennis shoes from, I guess, the commissary, right?
Yeah, I'm sure he's getting everything he needs. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting if and when his jail calls come out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't wait for this.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for this.
Jail calls are like, they're like the icing on the cake when you know you have a murderer, and you don't get prison cell calls. You get or at least most prisons don't release it, but you do get jail calls. So whenever he was in Ada County and Latah County, you would hope that you would get those jail calls.
Yeah.
And I would plan to cover that.
Yay. Yay.
I covered the Wade Wilson jail calls until it was just getting too much.
Oh, it
was just too much. It was too much. I'm like, this guy, I'm going to get like I'm going to get brain damage listening to this guy and trying to, point out his unreasoning and his like disgust.
Or just hearing his insane laugh.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That was maniacal. It was just crazy.
And then just go from one call to the next, lying from
all these women. I know.
Jesus Christ.
He really had a thing going.
You're going to marry me, right? I'm going to marry you. You're going to marry me to like 10 different people.
Yeah, we're going to get married when I get down to wherever it was, Miami or wherever it was down there. I know.
Yeah,
it was hilarious.
Robotic is a good way to put it. He's very robotic. He always has been robotic. Every time we've seen him whenever we saw him first walk into court in Pennsylvania, robotic. Every time he showed up in court in Idaho, robotic. He just sat there like a mannequin, right? And yes, I'm sure there are hours-long calls to his mother from the jail cells, but also there were hours-long calls to his mother not long after the actual murders. And remember, he took that one really creepy selfie of himself at 10 a.m. that day.
After.
In
his bathroom.
With his thumbs up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, this guy is such a, oh, man. Man. All right. Well, let's finish. Let's close it out here. I'm pretty sure I will be doing this again next week, but it really depends on my progress on my packing and everything. But please do keep an eye out for this stream. Scammer gonna scam. She's a scamming on the Idaho 4 case. Sorry, you got a plea deal, so you got to scam, right? You got to scam. Anyway.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oops, I almost removed you.
Oh.
And look, there's nobody here. Where are we? There we are. All right. Well, thank you as always for lending your beautiful voice to the reading.
You are so welcome. I'm glad I could be here, and good luck with your packing.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for the thumbs up. Please remember to hit it on your way out if you haven't already. Here is a link to other ways to donate to my channel if you don't want to become a member. And otherwise, have a fantastic rest of your day and weekend. See y'all later. Bye.
Bye.